Toe Tuesday, a Keep Punching entertainment event.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Keeppunching TV show. I'm pretty excited about tonight. I'm able to spend some time and speak to a gentleman I have a lot of respect for, Mr. Mike Borao, who's worked with some of the top fighters throughout the world and some very good heavyweights. Well, he's done quite well with them. I know you had Shannon Briggs, and he's still around making a lot of noise.
Shannon's still around making a lot of noise. I almost wish I was still with him.
And then, of course, you got Prince Charles Martin. Yeah. Mike, before we get started a little bit, if you don't mind sharing a little bit about your background. I understand you're an attorney. Is that correct?
I'm an attorney. I didn't start out as an attorney. I started out as a little bit of a gym rat, and I used to go to Rocky Marciano's gym, and that was owned by, I think it was his brother Lou. And when I started, it was just before the 1996 Olympic class, and they had some terrific heavyweights, and I'm a huge fan of heavyweights. So I was hanging around the gym with guys like Andrew Galata, Hasim Rahman, Kirk Johnson, Gary Bell, Courage Shabalala, and my first client ever, Jameel McCline, who only had, I think in 95 when we met, he was 2-1, and we went on to do 60 fights together. And that was sort of my introduction into boxing. And mostly I was just a gym rat and a driver for these guys. I drive them to and from the gym.
I had a little fun with Jamel in Florida one day. I was commentating with him on a show, and he's quite a pretty articulate guy. He told me at that time he was running for political office. Did he ever run?
He ran for Congress. I forget which district. He did very well, and he's contemplating now his second run because he did so well. He ran against an incumbent that was there for 30 years or something, so he had an uphill battle. And but I think he's got the support of the incumbent who will be going out. I believe this is his last term. And, you know, with a little luck, you'll be saying Congressman McCline next time.
That'll be pretty cool. He's a very humble guy, and I found him to be very articulate, and he did quite well in the commentating gig. He really did.
He's successful at everything he does, and I'm happy that he's, to this day, one of my dearest friends. He just spent the weekend at my house 2 weeks ago.
As an attorney, I'm sure that's been very beneficial for you in the industry as an agent. Is that correct?
Sure. Well, look, I mean, really, every fighter should have an attorney. Whether or not they have a manager, they all should have an attorney. Because,
I agree.
You know, what you sign, for the most part, you have to live up to what you're signing, or someone's going to make you live up to what you're signing. So it's really critical. It's crucial that a young fighter, an old fighter, and every fighter in between, you know, get the advice and counsel of an attorney. Whether it's me, I would, you know, even if someone ends up not choosing me when we sit down and have meetings, I say it doesn't matter if you don't go with me, but you have to go with someone.
Well, you and I have a very friend that we work very well with, who's also an attorney, Leon Margulies, and we know he's a hardworking guy and he's a great attorney. He's done quite well in the business also.
Yeah, Leon doesn't stop working, and he's another dear friend of mine. And really, that's the best part about this business, that people, unless you're in the business, you don't really understand. The people are unbelievable. They're wonderful characters. They're eccentric characters. One of my mentors, really my mentor in boxing, was Cedric Kushner. And the thing about Cedric, I met him maybe when I was 19 or 20 years old, and I didn't have two nickels to rub together. And people remember Cedric as he got older, but they didn't remember young Cedric. So young Cedric, you know, he had his house in the Hamptons. He had his 20 red cars, Ferraris, Lamborghinis, Bentleys, and me being born in the Bronx, not having had two nickels to rub together. And this guy was inviting me to stay in his Hamptons home and really treated me like a son. And he took me under his wing, just like a son. And he was really almost like a surrogate father to me, certainly my boxing father. And he really taught me, you know, 80% of what I know in this business. And I'm indebted to him to this day. And, you know, I miss him and I love him. And I wish he was still around, but he really, I have Jameel and Cedric and a couple others, maybe a handful of people that I owe my boxing career to.
Oh, well, that's interesting. I like Cedric. He was a very amicable a guy. He was easy to talk to. He's funny as heck. And there's some stories I'd rather not share on the video.
There's some very good stories.
He kept us all laughing quite a bit. He really did. Now, I know that we're coming to Alexandria, Louisiana, Rapides Parish Coliseum. It's a brand new Coliseum, seats 8,500 people. It's a beautiful place, sky boxes and everything, and it's right in the central part of Louisiana, a small town called Alexandria. And we're bringing what I call big-time boxing there. It's Vegas come to Louisiana, especially Alexandria. And you and I were talking earlier about this is a stacked card. I mean, it really is. To think that you walk into this show and not on TV now, you're going to see two big heavyweights. Yeah. And one of the heavyweights is yours. He's the former IBF heavyweight champion of the world, Prince Charles Martin. And we know he had a short-lived career as a heavyweight champion, but you know what? He's made a few dollars. The guy can punch, and he's got quite a reputation as a southpaw puncher. You mind telling me a little bit about what's going on with Charles Martin?
Well, look, Charles, to begin at the beginning, you know, he was part of a program called the All-American Heavyweights, and that was started by Michael King, you know, nearly a decade ago. And he was the end result of his search for the next great American heavyweight. And I was fortunate enough to partner up with Michael on Charles. I was the manager and he was the promoter, and we got him all the way to, I think it was 22 or 23-0 and number one in the world. And, you know, unfortunately, Michael, who was one of the greatest human beings I ever met and an unbelievable philanthropist and just such a great overall person, you know, left us way too soon. But what he did was he left a great legacy in boxing with Charles because, you know, everyone knows how successful he was in the TV side with Wheel of Fortune, Jeopardy, the biggest shows. I think he had 1, 2, and 3 in terms of historically the most successful shows. But even in boxing, you know, he was working on some enormous things. But before he left, he was able to put his fingerprint on the world of boxing and creating a heavyweight champion in Charles Martin. And with regards to Charles, I mean, few folks, you know, consider the fact that he was only a pro for 3.5 years and he became the heavyweight champion of the world. So, you know, to me, it's almost a scenario where too much, too fast. I mean, his learning curve was off the charts because from the guy that I turned pro, I think it was in Charlotte, North Carolina, to the guy who beat Glasgow and won the IBF heavyweight championship, the learning curve was tremendous. His activity was unbelievable. He had something like 22 fights, 23 fights in 3.5 years. And he went from camp to camp to camp to camp. And even when we had won the heavyweight championship, some 8 weeks later, we were in the ring against, you know, what the consensus was the number one challenger in the world, which was Anthony Joshua. Obviously, you know, we miscalculated a little bit and we thought that we were going to go through him. And even though there was some issues in camp, which Charles doesn't want to make any excuses, but even though there were some issues, we thought we had enough to get over that hurdle. Obviously, in hindsight, we didn't. And if we could do it again, maybe we do things differently, but there's no looking back now. So now Charles is in the second half of his career. He's on the second, this is his second bout back since losing the heavyweight championship. Now he's still only 4.5 years into his pro career. And I think he'll be challenging and winning the heavyweight championship for a second time within the next, you know, 6 to 12 months conceivably. So, you know, Charles is on the right track. He hit a little speed bump. And I think that very soon we're going to be talking about Charles Martin, 2-time heavyweight champion. As soon as he gets through a pretty tough challenge. I mean, Mike Marone is no walkover. He's 31 years old. He's 21-7. He's been around a long time. You know, he's a big, strong guy. I think 6'4", 230, 240.
Yeah, 15, 16 knockouts. He can bang a little bit.
He's going to come to win because he's going to see now, before no one wanted to fight Charles. Now they see this one thing with Anthony Joshua, who, by the way, everyone saw what he did to Klitschko, you know, so he's not a fluke. And so now I think guys are going to sleep on Charles a little bit, and I think that's going to give us an opportunity to fight the guys that we couldn't fight before. So, things have a tendency of working out the way they're supposed to work out, and I think it's worked out well for us, and it's going to work out well for us. Right now, it's landed us in your beautiful state in a brand new, gorgeous venue that we're really looking forward to being at. And assuming, we get past Mike Marone, which we're expected to do, and we expect to do, obviously, there's a lot of things down in the near future, a lot of good things down in the horizon. And one of those things is maybe matching up against another big, young, strong heavyweight undefeated that's on this show. So people, I think, are going to get a chance to look at Charles Martin and look at a big, strong, up-and-coming young prospect, Justin Jones, and say, maybe that's a match we can see, and maybe we'll see it in Louisiana after this one.
It's possible. Triple J is also on the card. And what's cool about that, it's everyone's coming to see the two heavyweights. Now, I know there's a lot of good guys on the card, but in Louisiana, we have a history, especially coming from New Orleans, of having great heavyweight fights. And when you mentioned two big heavyweights on the card, one, the former heavyweight champion of the world, and the other one, Triple J, who's undefeated in 22 fights and played football, of all things, in Louisiana, he's got a big following, man. He's got a fan base. And the fans are coming out to see those two guys. Now, the rest of the show is pretty well stacked. So I'm sure you're pretty excited about the thing that goes right there in Alexandria. Isn't that incredible?
Unbelievable. I'm excited about the show top to bottom. It's an incredible show, but my heart does lie with the heavyweights. So I'm looking forward to seeing Charles personally, and I'm looking forward to seeing Justin Jones. I think I've only seen him once or twice live in person, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he's been developing. And like I said, maybe a matchup down the line. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe so. It'll be right around the corner, maybe, and that'd be kind of interesting. Young, hungry lion against a guy that's still hungry at former champion of the world.
They're both young and hungry to me.
Yeah. Well, Mike, I really appreciate you spending the time today. And I don't think, have you ever been to Louisiana at all?
Baton Rouge. I've been.
Any fights here?
No, I can't remember. I do so many. I just check it, punch in and punch out, and occasionally I get to spend a day or two and eat some of the local. That's one thing I have to stop doing, is enjoying all the local all the stuff I shouldn't be eating at the local places. Is what I have to do.
Well, what can you tell the fans that are listening in about Tuesday night, the big show in Central Louisiana?
Listen, like I said, I'm going to stick with, even though there are great fights on the show, I'm going to stick with the heavyweights. Heavyweights are the best because why? Two huge, big men going at it. Anything can happen. You see Buster Douglas when he knocked out Mike Tyson. You see Hasim Rahman when he knocked out Lennox Lewis. Oliver McCall knocked out Lewis. All through history, the heavyweights, that's where the most action is. That's where you see the biggest upsets. That's where you see the biggest knockouts. And I expect to see a couple of big knockouts from a couple of big, young, hungry guys on Tuesday night. And it's very exciting. It's very exciting that it's taking place in Louisiana.
Well, appreciate it, Mike. Thanks for spending time with us today, and looking forward to seeing you in Alexandria, Louisiana, I think at the weigh-in on Monday.
Yes, sir. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody there.
Okay, Mike. Keep punching.
Okie doke. You got it. Thanks a lot.
Toe to Toe Tuesday, a Keep Punching entertainment event.